From you. The topic of conversation today is going to be on the vaccine for COVID-19. As many of you know, within just the past couple of days, a big announcement from U.S. drug manufacturer Pfizer that they have what appears to be a very effective vaccine in the pipeline. It's one of several that are in the works that are getting close. There will likely be more than one, and how to sort out which ones will be used and which ones won't, we'll find out about that as the time comes. But one of the research projects going on right now with vaccine trials is right here in Nashville at Vanderbilt University, and they're very involved and optimistic about what they're working on, as well as just giving us a good overview of where we stand on the vaccine. So no further ado, let's introduce our guest this morning. He is the director of the Vandy Vaccine Research Program, Dr. Buddy Creech, with us this morning. Good morning to you, Doctor. I know you're busy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me this morning.
Well, of course, everyone buzzing right now about, the situation with Pfizer. That's one vaccine that's in the works. Even Pfizer and the doctors there acknowledge, too, that, they've had some positive results as they move forward, and that there are 2 or 3 other vaccine programs in the works that are also, having some success. Tell us a little bit about the status right now of what's happening at Vanderbilt.
Well, there's a lot of reason for optimism right now. We've been working in this space of COVID vaccines for several months now, and what we're seeing is a really rapid development of potential vaccines that could either prevent or at least blunt the symptoms of COVID that are very exciting for us. And the Pfizer results from this week, although we're not participating in that trial, they give us a lot of encouragement that not only is a vaccine possible, but the technology used for Pfizer, the target of the vaccine, some of that is shared between other manufacturers. And so as we do studies by other companies like Moderna and Johnson & Johnson and Sanofi Pasteur and others, it gives us a lot of encouragement that if one works, the others may very well work too. And when that happens, then we have some choices that we can line up against which vaccines might work in some populations better than others. So I think this has been a really, it's been a really exciting week for us in vaccinology.
If you would, just in general, when we have these different trials taking place with, I guess, different vaccines all going toward the same goal, do they attack the problem differently? As I was reading about the Pfizer plan, it basically talks about how, this vaccine that they have apparently sparks an immune response in people who are vaccinated. They're using some never before approved technology called messenger RNA. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Maybe you are. I don't know. Is that the same type of vaccine that you're working on there, or are there subtle differences?
Well, this is really an important topic because I think there's a lot of information that we need in the population to be able to make wise choices about how we move forward with receiving a vaccine once it's available. So let me start by saying coronavirus gets the name because there are these spike proteins that sit on the outside of it that make it look like a sun. And if we can build an immune response to just that one part of the virus, then we think we can actually prevent infection. And the reason we know that is that when people develop COVID and they develop an immune response to the virus, that's the primary thing that their immune system responds to, is that spike protein on the outside of the virus.
Sure.
So now the question is, can we give a small piece of that spike protein to healthy individuals so that they build a response, not necessarily to the whole virus, which we know can cause devastating and sometimes fatal disease, but just to that small part. So none of the vaccines that I'll talk about can give you COVID. They just tell your immune system to build a response to that one portion. And there are maybe 3 big ways that we could do that. The first is just to take that protein from the virus, purify it in a laboratory, and inject it into the arm. That's what we do for things like influenza
Sure.
and tetanus and other very successful vaccines. Those vaccine trials are underway. The large phase 3 trials are about to start. The second way we could do it is we could actually take the recipe, the genetic sequence for that protein, and put it into a completely separate virus altogether, like another cold virus. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that's what 2 manufacturers are doing. AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson are taking a cold virus called adenovirus, hijacking it so that it can carry just a small piece of this coronavirus spike protein, and then making the adenovirus so weak that it can't make you sick. We began the Johnson & Johnson trial yesterday. And then the third way is, as you mentioned, this messenger RNA. Let's take the blueprint, the recipe for this protein, and instead of putting it in another virus, let's just package it in a small little oil droplet and deliver it to the deltoid muscle of your arm and let your body do all of the work. Your body makes the protein, and then as it makes that protein, your body makes an immune response. By doing that, we've already shown through the summer that our bodies respond in a safe manner. Arm pain, fever happens, but no unusual side effects that we've seen. And then it's an effective vaccine. We build an amazingly good immune response to it that we can measure in the bloodstream. Now, for the first time from the Pfizer study, we can see that that safety is true, that the effectiveness in the laboratory looks like it translates into the real world as well, as it looks like it was more than 90% effective at preventing COVID altogether.
Wow. Okay. And listen, I want to say this programming note real quick. Just now, our Facebook Live group has been able to join us at newschannel5.com. And if you are just now, this is Dr. Buddy Creech, director of the Vanderbilt Vaccine Research Program. And we're talking about vaccines, obviously, and how things are going down. And I find this incredibly fascinating. So there are different avenues, doctor, that we can go to, all with the same goal in place. Now, I've talked to some individuals who are in the trial, at least the one from earlier this summer at Vandy, and they kind of described to me, a sequence where they received 2 shots of the vaccine over a period of time. And initially, the first shot, they weren't told to take any ibuprofen or anything, but they went ahead and took the shot. And they said they did have, obviously not COVID, but they had a little bit of a reaction where they felt a little achy in the arm, maybe even had a little bit of a foggy head for a day, and then it went away. And then they described it to me that they went back for the second version. This time they took a little ibuprofen to help, and it went away and clear-headed, and they feel fine and are doing well. So is the test now with these individuals that they need to come back and be tested for antibodies, and that's where you'll determine whether or not they have protection from the virus if they were to encounter someone with it?
You're exactly right. And you raise a couple of really important pieces. First off, we have an incredible debt of gratitude to the volunteers who have rolled up a sleeve to help in the fight against this pandemic. And so a very broad but also specific thank you for all the volunteers who are helping in a variety of ways. And you've described it perfectly. Achiness, fever, arm pain and soreness at the injection site, much like we see with influenza. And for maybe some of the viewers that are watching that have received Shingrix vaccine, which is to prevent shingles, some people describe a lot of symptoms after that where they feel pretty achy and they feel like they need some Tylenol or Advil in the day or so that follows the vaccine. That's typical for our immune response. That's one of the reasons we feel badly when we get the flu, is that it triggers an immune response, and that's characterized by feeling achy and feverish and things like that. So it's not surprising that we would have some of those mild symptoms following a vaccine. What we've been really careful about is watching to see how common they are, how long they last, and do they come with any other unusual side effects. So what we do is we follow folks for up to 2 years in these vaccine studies. And what we're really specifically looking for is not only the safety, which is paramount, but also we're looking for those who are at high risk of being exposed to COVID, or those at high risk for severe COVID, and we're preferentially enrolling them into these vaccine studies. Because what we want to be able to see happen is through the normal walk of life, people that are first responders, they're in retail, they're in the music business, they're healthcare professionals, they have to be in an office for work. If we can show that those who got vaccine were less likely to get disease, that gives us a lot of confidence as we now launch a vaccine program to the public to be able to say we have confidence that the vaccine is safe, and we have confidence that it works. And
real quick, we're going to have to go to our first break, but I don't know if you are able at this point, you're not this far along, but the Pfizer study said that they're finding that it's providing up to 90% plus protection, which is far higher than what the FDA was even hoping for. They were thinking maybe 50. That, if true, I mean, and you're hopeful, I suppose, for the same thing with this. How long before you'll know how effective this vaccine is, that maybe one of the two that you're working on?
They're coming in stages. We hope that in the next short weeks, we may have data from the Moderna study. We are unclear of when those data will be available, but I know everyone is working at breakneck speed to be able to evaluate cases as they come in and to be able to provide these early analyses just as soon as possible. And then I think what we'll see is over the next several weeks to months, there will be a serious uptick in the number of vaccine studies that begin to be completed so that we can begin to see more and more vaccines potentially available to the public.
Listen, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with some phone calls. The lines are open. We've got some good questions actually coming in also on Facebook. And Regina asking, how can a vaccine be that effective if you're concerned that the coronavirus is mutating, which we've heard sometimes? What if it changes? And we'll give you a chance to answer that and more with our guest right now. Again, this is Dr. Buddy Creech. He's director of the Vanderbilt Vaccine Research Program, one of a handful around the world right now working toward a vaccine for COVID-19. We'll be back right after this.